Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
Welcome back. Is anybody joining us here for the first time today? Could you just tell us your first name?
My name is Sean.
Hi, Sean.
My name is Mark.
Mark.
My name is Talon.
Talon. Welcome.
Jess.
Hi, Jess. Come on.
Molly.
Welcome in. Molly.
Can I have a look at tea?
Yeah. You can. Yes. Yeah.
I can?
Yes.
Only if you're Buddhist.
So it's our custom to go around and say our names. So my name is Hi Sue online. My name is Cass.
Name is Steve. My name is Henry.
Jess.
Bob. Clinton. Jim. Freddie. I'm Greg.
Andrea. Matthew. Jim.
Ian. Risha. Ernie. Ron. I'm Brad. Stephen.
Susan.
Jill. I'm Steve. Jack.
I'm Richard.
Sean. Mark. Alan.
Jenny.
Lee.
Mary.
And online we have Ocean, Ed, Jeffrey, Marvin, Daniel, John, Christian, Robert, Frisco, Sue, Samuel, Tim, Jay Eno, and Gaites. So it's my pleasure to welcome today Mary Stancavage, who has practiced meditation, yoga, and cultivated a spiritual practice for over 35 years, and in 2009 was empowered to teach Buddha Dharma. She teaches classes, retreats, coaches, and mentors individuals, and has facilitated several year-to-live groups. She has served as a volunteer hospital chaplain and been involved with leadership in several nonprofit organizations over the years, both in meditation and in the social justice arena. She is currently a member of the Guiding Teachers Council for Insight Community of the Desert and is a board member of both Meditation Coalition and CLUE, Clergy and Laity United for Economic Justice. For the past several years, Mary has investigated what it means to live with an undefended heart, and more information on this can be found on her website, marystancavage.org. Fun fact, Mary has an MA from UCLA and spent several seasons working as an archaeologist in Syria. Welcome, Mary.
Thanks, Cass, and hi, everyone. It's so good to be with you. I was here last year, and what a delight to come back. I live in the Los Angeles area, so it's nice to see you. It's always nice, and I'm staying with a friend of mine here, and this morning I got to meet someone who I've sat with for years online on Zoom and finally gotten to meet, and she bought me a gift that I have to share with you because it's really lovely, and she told me I had to show you. There you go. Here's your Dharma. Is that fun?
It's so great.
Yeah, that's me. This is me. So, actually, it really goes along with what I want to talk about this morning, which is the importance of joy. It's so important, and it's really a powerful practice, and it is a practice in Buddhism, and I think it's really important because it's important anyway, but today, especially with all the violence and the fear and the cruelty and the wars and the insanity going on, it's always going on. It's been going on for centuries, but it's really amped up right now. And the importance of seeing a bigger picture is really, I think, something I want to investigate and offer and share. And I've been thinking a lot about it because I'm kind of finishing a book called The Book of Joy, which are conversations between His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu from South Africa. And Archbishop Desmond Tutu passed away a couple of years ago, but this book, somebody recommended it to me, and it's really wonderful. They really dive into how joy has enriched their lives. And they're both people who've been through tremendous suffering. The Dalai Lama is in exile from Tibet, and his country is taken over by the Chinese, and so many people are in exile. And Archbishop Desmond Tutu grew up in apartheid South Africa and fought against that for much of his life. So these are two gentlemen who have experienced a lot of suffering, but they're also deeply spiritual men, different faiths. But Cass mentioned in my intro that I'm on the board of this nonprofit, and it's an interfaith organization in Southern California, and it's clergy and laity, and we work for economic justice. We work with labor unions. We work with immigration. So we've been busy lately. But I have found in this work with rabbis and imams and Christian ministers, and I'm the Buddhists, that there's this foundation of love and compassion for each other, one another, and a seeking of justice for all, and equity for all. It's quite Buddhist, but I've noticed that other people believe that too. So it's really beautiful. So that's why the two of them together in this conversation is really powerful. But before talking about joy, I want to talk a little bit about suffering. Especially today when I talk about joy, I feel that sometimes there's a pushback, or I talk to people who go, how can I be happy when there's so much going on? It doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem like it's something I should be doing. And actually, it's really important to find that place of joy, to find that place of equanimity, really. Equanimity is the balance of being able to be present for the suffering, the discomfort, the awfulness, and the fun and the joy and the lightness. And Bhikkhu Bodhi, who is a wonderful teacher in the Theravadan tradition, says, cultivation of joy is important to regulate despair. It's too easy to fall into a place of doom, but that is out of balance. So joy, cultivation of joy, helps us maintain that balance. There is suffering. The Buddha taught that. He didn't say life is suffering. He said there is suffering, which is a big difference. The first noble truth. There's birth, there's death, there's loss, there's impermanence. There's suffering with that. That happens. That's part of the human condition. And we make it worse by not wanting that, by trying to push it away, by saying, no, no, no. Second noble truth, chasing pleasure all the time. Denial of reality. That's where our suffering is. This inability to be present with the way it is. And so the invitation of practice, the invitation of these teaching is to be where we are. To be open to the moment, to be open to the reality of the human condition, to be open to the reality of the day-to-day existence. But that includes joy as well as suffering. That includes, there's a teaching of equanimity called the 8 Worldly Winds. And I love it. I love that teaching. There's praise and blame. There's pleasure and pain. There's gain and loss. There's all of these things. There's fame, there's shame. There's all of these things, and it's how we can hold each of them without going off the edge is really important. But the Buddha taught that joy, like all wholesome qualities, is not dependent on external circumstances. So there's suffering. Yeah. But there's also a beautiful sunrise. There's sadness, but there's also my cats who I love. They make me smile. We have to be present for each moment as it is. Joy is not a denial of suffering, and suffering is not a denial of joy. We have to experience them both and become familiar with each of those. And as I said, joy is not dependent on external circumstances. It's an internal ease that we have when we can be fully grounded where we are. My favorite phrase, if you've heard me teach, you've heard this 1,000 times. I have it right here on my arm so I don't forget. Right now, it's like this. It can't be any other way than the way it is. How can you be with this right now? Can you be with this moment as it is? And often because of our conditioning, we push things away. We learn, oh, this is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong. We get messages from our families. We get messages from society, from schoolmates, from society, familial messaging, societal messaging, telling us we're good, we're bad, we're right, we're wrong, we're doing the right thing, we look the wrong way, we speak the wrong language, we love the wrong people, or this is right, that's wrong, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, oftentimes it's not conscious, but we internalize these messages. Or we're told you're not supposed to feel that. Anybody ever have that? The anger? No. I did, when I did my chaplaincy training a few years ago, somebody came to speak to us and he asked, how were you taught about grief in your family? And I think half of the class went, no. We didn't learn anything about grief in our family. And so we have to make our own way through the world, dealing with what happens to us. And so much of our conditioning has the seeing things in a particular way, full of shoulds and have tos and musts. And but instead, this practice and these teachings invite us to be with what's right here instead. And sometimes simply acknowledging this is a difficult moment. This is really hard right now. Creates a space. Oftentimes we fight against it. Something happens, we're immediately reacting. Have to fix this, have to fix this, have to fix this, have to change this. You hit your elbow. What do? You tense up. I hate this one stupid bookcase. Who put that there? But if instead you can just go and let go of that reactivity and just breathe and feel the discomfort, there's a lot more ease. There's a lot more freedom. There's a spaciousness that arises. And when you have that pause, you can be present for whatever's right here. A few years ago, I listened to a talk by Larry Ward, who's a wonderful teacher. He passed away a few months ago. He was a student of Thich Nhat Hanh and a colleague of Thich Nhat Hanh. And he quoted Thich Nhat Hanh, who said, "When you know how to suffer, you suffer less." If you know how to suffer, if you recognize what's happening, if you say, right now it's like this, and this is really painful, or this is really difficult, then you can be more present for it, have more capacity to deal with what's happening. You're not running away from something. Instead, you're being with it. What I like to say, you're resting in being. How many of us are just doing all the time instead of just being? Yeah. Yeah. Go. I was in the hospital a couple of years ago. I had some blood clots, and I ended up in the hospital, and I was like, I wasn't sick enough to not enjoy the fact that I didn't have to do anything. And I keep looking at that Yankee hat. I'm a baseball fan, and it was the first day of playoffs. So I'm like, I get to lay here and just watch baseball games all day long, which is really bizarre. If you go, why are you happy you're in the hospital? It's because there was a break. Because we're in a society that tells us we have to keep going and doing and not quite enough. Oh, you think you accomplished that? There's more, there's more, there's more. Which is why it's so difficult for so many of us to offer ourselves loving kindness and compassion. Because we have this in the back of our heads. No, you need a little bit more. You have to do a little bit more. So instead, it gets better, suffering gets better when you can relax around it. It doesn't make it go away. But the capacity to be with it shifts. It increases. We have that. We're moving towards equanimity, which, as I said, is the capacity to be with what is, to be intimate with our experience without needing it to be different, to be kind towards our experience without needing it to be different. And that said, it's easier said than done. And so I want to touch on a couple of things that the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu talked about as obstacles to joy, because there are things that get in the way, like fear or stress or anxiety, which we're all experiencing to some extent or another right now. I think it's like, especially if you're like caught in your devices. I mean, it's like. It's a nonstop hit of what's now. And to just, recognize that, maybe this isn't the wise thing to do. Maybe I can put this down. There's in the Eightfold Path, the second factor of the Eightfold Path. And the Eightfold Path is the Buddha's teaching on the path to liberation. And the second piece is wise intention. And part of wise intention is renunciation. And renunciation is not just doing something so you'll be a good person, or not doing something so you'll, check the box off. But it's like looking at what doesn't serve you and letting that go. What's in my life that doesn't serve me? What is there something filling me with anxiety? Is there something I'm doing that maybe I could let go of doing? Maybe scrolling all day long I can let go of. Or whatever it is. So bringing some wisdom and clarity and saying, oh, okay, maybe I shouldn't listen to all this or blah, 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 all the things. So we discover what's maybe not so wise that we're doing that we can let go of. Brene Brown talked about something called foreboding joy, which is an obstacle to joy. And foreboding joy, which I have experienced in my life, is not being willing to experience joy because we know it's going to end and we don't want to have to deal with the end of it. So I'd rather do without than have to feel that. It's like that old Simon and Garfunkel song, I Am a Rock. If I never loved, I never would have cried. Therefore, I'm just going to wrap myself up in armor and I'm never going to feel anything. The problem is you don't feel sorrow, but you don't feel joy or happiness either. You block everything out. And we're just cut off from our own humanity, And despair, we're overwhelmed. We let things take over. That also gets in the way of joy, where we just don't allow this moment to be as it is. Loneliness, we're such an isolated society right now.
Yeah.
We're so disconnected in so many ways. So that sense of connection. This is why I love coming to a group like this or other groups I'm a part of. Good people doing good things. Oh my gosh, it feels so good to be in community with others, even just a few people. So there's all these things that get in the way of joy. I think as I said at the beginning, this idea of like, oh, I can't be feeling this because XYZ is happening. Many years ago, my brother died many, many years ago. He was very young. He had melanoma cancer, and I went back east for the funeral. And in the morning, of course, there was the funeral, and we're all very sad. And then that evening, we're sitting in the backyard, his backyard, with his wife and his kids and some other friends. we're laughing our asses off, telling stories and just having so much fun. And I remember thinking, is this okay? Does this mean I'm a bad sister because I'm not crying? We have this idea of what things are supposed to look like, and we get stuck in that rigidity. Whereas these teachings is no, what is the appropriate response right now? And the appropriate response right now in that moment was to laugh at these funny stories, at the really stupid things he did. Because he did some stupid things. So, we all do. And so to have that moment of joy, why would we deny that? Because of some idea of it's supposed to be this way. It's supposed to be a different way. So, they also talked about how do we cultivate joy. And one of the things they talked about was shifting our perspective. Seeing things in a really big, different way. Instead of this rigidity of it's supposed to be, not supposed to be, blah, blah, blah. It's this kind of tense way we go through the world, but to get a little bit looser. And they, I don't know where I found it. Maybe I just had this, I think I had this quote, from Viktor Frankl, who was a Holocaust survivor. And he wrote a book. One of his books is called Man's Search for Meaning. And he said, our perspective and our outlook on life is our ultimate freedom. So how we can view the world, regardless of what's happening, because that freedom is internal. And so how can we be present with what's happening right now, with equanimity, with a big a shift, like glass half full rather than glass half empty. To bring humor, they talked to Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu talked about humor. And I mentioned this before, but I think of all these really hot, very, what I would say, spiritual people, like the Dalai Lama and monks, Bhikkhu Bodhi, who I've met a few times, and other really wise people and teachers who are really grounded, who are really solid in their spiritual practice. They're really quite light, and they have an easy smile and a lightness about them. In spite of all the stuff they've gone through in their lives, many of them, there's this lightness because they're not carrying everything. And it's not because they're dismissing everything, but they can be present in the moment as it's needed. When there's suffering, when there's something awful happening, they can be present. And I'm thinking of what reminded me, I was thinking about this last night, it reminded me of the image of Guan Yin, which you probably have a Guan Yin over there. Yeah. Who is the embodiment of compassion. And there's an image of her where she's sitting there like this with her leg over her arm. No. That's yoga. With her arm on her knee, and she's just fully, it's called the pose of royal ease. She's just sitting there like this, but she's got her leg on the earth, ready to move at a moment's notice. She's a bodhisattva of compassion. She who hears the cries of the world, and she's there. So has this place of ease, but she's ready to show up in a moment's notice because we're present. We're fully grounded right here, fully where we are. And then James Barrows is a teacher who many of you probably know. He has a group in Berkeley, and he teaches at Spirit Rock a lot. And he has a class he's been teaching for many, many years called Awakening Joy. And he has a book that he published that came out of that class. And I did the class, and I read the book, and it's really solid in Dharma. It's really solidly grounded. And he talks about how we move towards increasing joy. And by joy, it's this ease with life, this lightness. You know, I find vocabulary sometimes can be off-putting for people. Like you hear the word joy and it's like it doesn't quite land, or you hear the word suffering and it doesn't quite land. And so just shift it up. Like Bhikkhu Bodhi said when he was translating the Buddha's discourses, the person who did the major translation before he did said, every time I see the word dukkha, I'm going to have it mean translated as suffering. But with translations, things mean different, words mean different things in different contexts. So sometimes you should have to change. Like metta is often translated as loving kindness, but it also means friendliness or goodwill. So you can, if the word joy is just not landing, think of it as a lightness of being at ease with the moment, which is not ground down with despair. So, I'm going to use the word joy because it's easier than using all those others as well. So, but what James says to start moving towards joy, incline the mind. Make a decision. I'm going to bring this into my life. And not like, how am I going to do it, make a list, blah, 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 but just drop it in. Say, you know what? Do I want to be right or do I want to be happy? How am I going to move towards that? What gets in the way? This is a huge question I ask all the time. What gets in the way of joy, of being at ease? And you don't have to answer it now, but that's, like I said, that's something you just kind of drop in there. Because when we set an intention, I think it was Daniel Siegel who said that when you set an intention, it primes the nervous system to start looking for that type of thing. So there's a neurological response to setting an intention to move in that direction. And mindfulness, of course, is important. It's the foundation of everything. If we're not mindful, if we're not paying attention, we're going to miss it all. Mindfulness is just the foundation of so many things. The 7 factors of awakening. For those who are new to Buddhism, there's a lot of lists. So, in the 7 factors of awakening, the first factor is mindfulness. That's the foundation. You have to be aware. You have to be paying attention. Because if you're not paying attention, you're lost in your head. You're thinking about yesterday. You're thinking about tomorrow. You're having conversations with people who aren't there. Maybe you're reacting in ways you don't want to. You're just reacting out of habit. Those habit energies because of conditioning. So to be present with a kind awareness, a gentleness towards ourselves. It's really important to let go of that harsh critical voice. We're just making our way. We're just making our way. And be present for our lives. And then what's incredibly important is gratitude. And for years, I would say, what do I have to be grateful for because of my life circumstances? And people say, well, you should be grateful you can walk and breathe. And I'll be like, really? Because I was so entrenched in thinking how awful it was. And so to chip away and Rick Hansen, who wrote the book Buddha's Brain, which is a great book, he talks about this. He's a neuropsychologist. And he says, if you spend a few moments being grateful, it really has a beneficial impact on the brain. Again, these practices impact our brain in ways that are really helpful and make a difference. So cultivate that gratitude. It's the simplest things. The simplest things, really important. It said it's the most direct way to access well-being. And again, what gets in the way of gratitude? For me, it was just so much stuff that had built up over the years that I was in this poor me place and I couldn't see a way out until finally it's like, oh, just say thank you. It's like, oh, that's a nice shirt. I got it at a thrift store for nothing. And it's just say thank you, Mary. Just say thank you. Just say thank you. Okay. That's how you begin to gratitude. Thich Nhat Hanh is really wonderful in this type of thing. What just popped into my mind, the idea of when we're having a meal, if you stop before you eat or take a bite, even and just think about how many people were involved in getting that food onto your plate. Farmers, truckers, People who packaged it, depending on what you're eating, the person who, bought it home from the store, or brought it home from the store, whatever, someone who cooked it, if you're in a restaurant or at a taco stand, all those hands that were involved. Wow. Let there be some gratitude for that. I mean, just the simplest things. It's really easy to stick this stuff into your life in little ways. And then, James talks about finding joy in difficult moments, as I talked about with my brother. And there's the teaching of the 5 remembrances, where all of the nature to grow old, get sick, and die. We everything we have will be taken from us. All we have are our actions. So to really make friends with the human condition and recognize that stuff's going to come and go and come and go. And can we open to everything and watch how we get in our own way with this stuff? And then I like this one because it's really good. It's what he calls the bliss of blamelessness. Living a life of integrity. Living a life of non-harming. Really, I've found, again, the Eightfold Path to be a place to land. I think of it as a net for a trapeze artist. When I'm kind of, what am I doing? What? The Eightfold Path, especially wise action. I have a teacher, Ruth King, who says, I want to live in a way that makes it safe for other people to be around me. What an amazing gift for others. What would it be like if you could be safe around everyone you met, or they could be safe around you? So the wise action is involved in that. Non-harming, not killing, not harming. And not just non-harming, but cultivating compassion. Not taking what's not yours. And not just not taking or stealing, but cultivating generosity. Being wise with our speech. And not just, and saying what needs to be said in a kind way. Sometimes saying what needs to be said is harder than, not lying. That was my story. It was really hard for me to tell you what I really thought, because I was afraid you wouldn't like me if I told you the truth. And so to be honest and open is powerful. So to live in a way that doesn't cause harm, and to recognize we're all going to cause harm, even if we're mindful. And to take accountability for it. Not try and blame or, say, I didn't do it, la, la, la. But no, it's like, yeah, I did that, and I understand the impact it had, and I'm going to do what I can to not do that in the future. And can I make any amends? So to really live that life of blamelessness, there's so much joy when we're not running from lies and shame and guilt and all those things. There's, again, that lightness that we build for ourselves. And the joy of letting go of stuff we carry, letting go of shoulds and have-tos and self-view, and it's supposed to be this way, these conditioned ideas that we've carried for so long. The Dalai Lama tells a story of, he likes gadgets. You remember there used to be that store, the Smarter Image, and where it had all the fun things. And he said he was in an airport one time and he just stopped and he wanted all of those things. He didn't know what they were, but he wanted all of them. Our minds can go into that place immediately. What is it? I think it's Joseph Goldstein talks about just reading a catalog. And a catalog, I forget the term he used for it, but it's just, catalog dharma or something. It's just the mind just gets into this grasping. Or you're supposed to do this, or it's supposed to. What if we're invited to, and just, if we instead we just come back and go, it's like this. And can I let go of shoulds and have-tos and expectations and all the things and just be with what's here? There's such a freedom in letting go of stuff and things and ideas and conditioning. And then can we learn to be gentle with ourselves? Can we be kind to ourselves? The sweetness, James calls it, the sweetness of loving ourselves. That is sometimes the hardest thing to do. And there's a very famous story which really gave me hope when I first heard it. There was a meeting of all the of an international meeting of Buddhist teachers in Dharamsala, where the Dalai Lama lives in India, back in the early 90s. And Sharon Salzberg, the teacher, asked the Dalai Lama about what do you do when people are practicing loving kindness, metta for self, and they are experiencing self-loathing. And Dalai Lama had to have the question asked like 3 times and translated because he didn't know what she was talking about, because it wasn't a thing where he grew up. He didn't grow up in a world that we said we're not good enough. We heard the message, you just got to try harder, you're not good enough, you don't, blah, blah, blah. And the goalposts keep changing, so we'll never arrive. So instead, it gave me hope that, it's not necessarily the human condition, maybe it's just the societal conditioning instead. And can I instead bring this gentleness to myself? And they have found that the more compassionate we can be to ourselves, the more compassionate we can be to others. Again, a neural pathway thing. When we meditate and bring mindfulness and compassion, it begins to open those mirror neurons where we recognize the suffering of others, we recognize others' humanity, we recognize our shared humanity. One of the most beautiful pieces of the Metta Sutta, I think one of the most important phrases when the Buddha is talking about how all beings deserve, we do not deceive another or cause harm to anyone. We wish this for all beings. We wish peace and ease to all beings, omitting none. Omitting none. I don't think it gets any plainer than that. Everybody is deserving of this love and compassion and kindness. That's what we're moving towards. That's what these teachings offer us. And then, so there's the joy of loving ourselves and of others. There's cultivating the compassion, this recognition. We all experience the human condition, so this compassionate response to others, the suffering of others, without being overwhelmed. And then there's just the joy of being. The joy of being. Can we just relax the mind and be with things as they are? There's this joy of just being. I have, I think I wrote this a couple of years, I wrote this a couple of years ago. And there's a story, a very famous story, in Buddha, in the suttas and the discourses about this woman named Kisa Gautami, whose child died at like 1 or 2 years old, and she was distraught. She didn't want to believe that he had died, so she ran everywhere saying, "Can you help my son? Can you help my son? Can you help my son?" And eventually she found the Buddha, and she said, "Can you help my son?" And he said, "Sure, I can help your son, but you have to go and bring me a mustard seed from a house in the village where no one has ever died." And so she went door to door and said, "Do you have a mustard seed you can give me?" And they said, "Sure, but of course people have died. People always die. It's the nature of our existence." And so I wrote this. I was in a class, I guess, and I wrote this last few years ago. And I had to tell that story because it refers to the first line. Where's the mustard seed that will bring my child back to life? Where is the cure for reality? What do I have to do not to suffer? How can I avoid sickness, old age, and death? Are there words I can say? Are there rituals I can perform? Are there songs I can sing? Share the magic with me. Help me to find something, please. But you have nothing to give, no enchanted phrase, no talisman or amulet to ward off life and death, sorrow and pain. I hear it said that for there to be joy, there must be sadness. If there is pleasure, there is pain. If I win, then I must also lose. I do not want what is. I do not want it to be this way. But there's no choice, and I will never win this fight with reality. There is sickness, there is old age, there is death. There's no way around. There's only through. I will go through. I will open to this moment. I will be deeply intimate with my experience without preference. This openness, this intimacy, this presentness is where freedom is. I hear it said that for there to be joy, there must be sadness. If there is pleasure, there is pain. It is all one. Let it be so, and let me be here for it all. And let there be joy. So I invite you to just be, but don't miss the joy. Don't miss the joy. There's the sadness, but there's also the joy. There's the equanimity. There's the balance. There's all the things. As I said, no one wins a fist fight with reality. And have you tried? I've tried. So what I want to do now, I just want to pause for a moment. I just want to sit with you, ask you to sit for just a moment. I mean, literally just a moment. You can just stay in your spot and just reflect. What brings you joy? What brings you joy today, in this moment, in this life? It may not be present right now, but it's something that brings you joy, or happiness, or ease, or contentment. And I invite you to watch any self-censorship that might show up, because sometimes we judge our own feelings. And so let go of any self-censorship that might be happening. And now, if you would, I invite you to just turn to a person near you and share what brings you joy. And folks on Zoom, I invite you to maybe write in the chat what brings you joy. Just tell the person next to you what brings you Thank you, everyone.
So much joy.
Yeah. Anybody want to share? A couple of folks want to share what brings them joy? Maybe you can read something on the chat. Anybody, what brings you joy? Maybe one or two. All right, I'll share. Baseball, redwood trees, kombucha, chocolate ice cream, pizza,
Flowers.
Googly eyes.
Food.
Yeah.
I like Chipotle.
Chipotle, there you go.
Writing a really good story.
Writing a really good story, yeah.
Sangha. Sangha, being in community.
Sangha, yeah, community. Yeah. What did anybody on sharing on?
Yeah, there's being in a garden surrounded by plants, being a part of this group, my dog, my students here, my cat, my community garden, walking a path in the redwoods.
Beautiful. See, it doesn't have to be grandiose. I didn't hear anybody say $1 billion. Because from what I hear, it doesn't bring joy. And from what I see, no billionaire seems to have enough. So,
$1 million wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, it wouldn't hurt. I'm not going to say no, but it's not what's reality in our lives. And so to not miss the joy that's right here is so important. And it can be, I can be crying one minute and then filled with joy the next minute, because this practice allows us to just flow. There's the mindfulness that allows you to flow. Yeah, really important. So I want to thank you all for your kind attention and see if there are any questions. Or yeah.
Thank you for everything you said. I feel a lot of what you've been speaking about, but it also reminded me of something I read very recently, a piece of wisdom that said, if we would not try so hard to be happy, we feel a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, if we wouldn't try so hard to be happy, we'd feel a lot better. Yeah.
Thank you for the talk. And I just wanted to revert back to what you were saying about like being able to sit with suffering allows for people to have less suffering. And what it made me think of is like if I allow that space, then I can allow space for healing to come in. And I think sometimes, even though it seems like counterintuitive, like we sort of shield ourselves from suffering, but then that doesn't allow space for healing.
100%. Yeah. I think a lot of us have that experience when we finally open up to whatever that experience is, the grief or the sadness or the loss, and let it be there and tend to it with gentleness. There's a healing. We don't have to run. We don't have to run from it anymore. It's a powerful place to be. That's where freedom is. That capacity to be with what's inside. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Thank you for your talk. I feel like I have a lot of joy in my life right now. You know, it's been a 42-year journey in recovery and in Buddhism and everything. And I'm known as the joy sponsor actually in my fellowship. It's about it's never too late to have happy childhood. And you know, I didn't come from that. And part of my abstinence is no shame, no guilt, no self-condemnation, you know, no shoulds. And I teach that when I sponsor people. And I guess early on I said I want to want what I have. You know, because there was always more. When I grew up with more rules of engagement than the military. And, you know, I just feel blessed. And I think I was speaking yesterday and I said, it only takes one person to see you to change your life. And that was my grandma, you know. And I just feel blessed with what's come my way. And many things for me. Thank you.
Hi, I just thank you so much for your talk. Your talk full of wise gems. And just for a word out, you know, I took the Awakening to Joy class by James Barris online several years ago, and it was absolutely fantastic. It was life-changing. So now I have joy practices. So one quick example I'll share with you guys. After I eat my breakfast, I made a practice and trained my kitty cat, Lily, that when she sees when I'm done with breakfast, so she knows it's time that I'm going to play with her with the noodle on the stick. I will run around. And while she does that, I sing my favorite song. And this is a joy practice I do every single day. And it's so wonderful.
Thank you. Anybody online have a question to
Christian?
Yes. Mary, thank you so. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you so much for visiting again. I'm so happy you accepted our invitation, and I hope to have you back again to share your I'll just put it out there, optimistic message. Thank you.
Thanks, Christian.
Hi, Mary. I just want to say it is so nice to meet you, and it was worth the 6 years sitting with you. And just yesterday, I was absolutely melting down about hitting a wall and not knowing what to do. And then again, it's like, oh, that's right. I don't need to, and bringing joy into it and a balance of that. And I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for your talk. This is all like our first time doing this, so it was it was such a welcoming, we love your talk. There was one topic that I was really, that I heard before, coming here and mentioning your talk is this thing about impermanence. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to learn a little bit more about that because I feel like it relates to a lot of the joy and the things you talk about.
Yeah, impermanence is one. I told you there's a lot of lists. In Buddhism, there's 3 characteristics. One of which is impermanence, that there is suffering and that there is impermanence. And just in a nutshell, when we deny impermanence and we look at something to bring us everlasting happiness, or this is going to, if this happens, if I get this job, if I get this relationship, I'll live happily ever after, basing our foundation on something that's impermanent, it's bound to fail because everything's impermanent. It may take years, it may take seconds, but things change and shift. And so to recognize that and to become familiar with impermanence is really important. I mean, because sometimes we hold on to things. I love perfume, and I will keep perfume if there's this much in the bottle till it turns rancid, because I don't want to use it up, because I don't want to let it go, and I refuse to believe it's impermanent. But that's a silly example, but we do that with everything. So just recognize that things are impermanent and things are shifting. All we have are our actions. What are we doing right now? What are we doing in this moment? So it takes a while to process some of these things. We just have to learn about them, and then they seep in and become kind of more part of how we move through the world. Yeah. Thank you for the question. Yeah.
So I'm sort of oriented towards understanding, so thank you for your wonderful talk.
Last question. Sorry. Yeah.
And it just reminded me of something. So I've done meditation, not very well, but I've done it for 30 years, more or less. But I frequently am still puzzled about what's the point. And so the point that I'm aware of that connects with this, that I've become more aware of, is just noticing what my body-mind does. And sometimes it looks for what's wrong and suffers misery. And other times it's reminded, like Atisha slogan, always maintain a joyful mind. And then it shifts to that, and that's joy. And so it's just, where do you pay attention?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, again for your kind attention. And Cass, back to you.
Thank you. Do we have a host today?
We do. I want to acknowledge that we occupy the unceded ancestral homeland of the Rama Kush Ohlone people, who were the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula and were good stewards of this land. So please stay and enjoy the company of the Sangha. There are refreshments and hot water for tea, and there's fruit. Is our vegan offering today. If you use a cup, please wash it or leave it in the sink, and I'll take care of it. I'll be going around with the Dana bowl to accept contributions. We appreciate your generosity. Donations, we request donations or recommend from $10 to $20, and they help the Sangha pay the speakers with an honorarium, rent the center. Hopefully we may continue monthly dinners for the Largo Street Youth Services, and to put out our quarterly newsletter, which is mailed mostly to people in prison. There's a newcomer sign-up sheet out on the credenza. If you want to get be in the directory and get our notices about things, go ahead and sign up. Some members go to lunch after the meeting. Everyone is welcome, and they usually meet by the front door around 12:30.
And you've heard something with, yes?
There's going to be a concert. There's going to be a concert this afternoon at 2:30 at the Drawing Room Art Gallery at 17th and Valencia. Free. If anyone would like to drop in. 2:30 and 17th and Valencia. But the drawing.
What kind of
classical chamber music.
So let's gather in a circle for a dedication of man. By the power and truth of this practice, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all be free from sorrow and the causes of sorrow. May all never be separated from the sacred happiness which is without sorrow. And may all live in equanimity without too much attachment or too much aversion, believing in the equality of all that lives.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.